Joe and I meet to look at the application and whether or not there's any changes that need to be done. There are some changes that we're proposing this year, as Joe alluded to, so I just want to run through them in a little bit of detail tonight. The first one, it pertains to Section 5, the payment schedule, and Section 6, the refund policy. So traditionally, campers have been asked to make a $200 deposit on September 30th, another $200 March 1st, and then make full payment by May 1st. What we're proposing now is that 3 payment schedules, and the seasonal camper can choose which payment schedule they would like to partake in. And depending on what they choose, there's different benefits. There's pros and cons to each one. The most beneficial one is to pay in full by September 30th, in which case you would get the current year's rate. So if you're willing to pay by September 30th of 2018, you would get the 2018 rate before the 2019 fee comes in. If you choose to pay by September 30th, you get the current year's rate. You get your permit expedited following March 1st, and you're provided an opportunity to come in and site your trailer before May 1st. So you don't have early access to the park, but you can come in and site your trailer. The second option, you don't have the funds, you don't want to pay September 30th. You can wait for the 2019 fees to be set, and then you would pay in full by March 1st. In this scenario, we would be looking at a $200 payment on September 30th, and then the rest of the fees would be owing by March 1st. If you choose that scenario, you're paying the 2019 fees, but you also have early permit pickup and you have early trailer siting, so you have those benefits. If you don't have your funds by March 1st, and you want to extend your payment schedule out to May 1st, you can certainly do that. But there would be a $100 surcharge applied immediately following March 1st. You would have no early permit, so you'd have to wait and attend the campground on May 1st and get your permit before you were allowed access to the park. And there would be no early trailer storage or trailer siting. We believe the reasons why we're introducing those is, one, to offer more options to the campers, but also incentives to pay in full. What we found more and more is that there's a trickle of payments coming in from our seasonal campers. And while that might be beneficial to them, it does create a lot of paperwork and staff time to continuously process those fees throughout the season. So we hope that providing, especially the incentives of paying by September 30th and March 1st, that we would be able to reduce staff processing time, but also offer a favorable option to our campgrounds. Because we would be looking at setting our fees later in the season, so traditionally we've brought you fees in August to have them back out and communicated to the campgrounds by September 30th so they can make informed decisions about their camping next year. Because we would like to wait until later after the campgrounds close so that the guys have adequate time to participate in those discussions, and we have more time to do real comparisons with other campgrounds, that we would be offering again to the campgrounds campers a full refund if they notify us before March 1st that they don't wish to camp. If they notify us after March 1st, then we would refund them minus a $400 fee. The second section that we wanted to address tonight was 16, the intention to camp. So this would be introduced mainly because we're not setting those fees until later in the season. So a lot of campers will say, we don't know if we want to come camp with you until you've set your fees. But they want to keep their site, so they don't want to give up their site. And so we'd be introducing an intention to camp. And this would replace the need to submit an application to the authority by September 30th. Instead, by September 30th, you would be signing off that you intend to camp next year. Please reserve my site. and would declare their intention and extend the permit until March 1st and allow them to store their ancillary items on the site. So they're basically their deck and their sheds could remain on site. And again, this would allow staff more time to consider fee changes after the season ends. And together with this option plus the refund option, hopefully provide the campers with some peace of mind that they're not committing to something that they're not going to be ultimately happy with. Section 17, we looked at some changes to our seasonal camping standard. Again, the guys are very busy in the park and the campers want to make improvements to their campsites, but those two schedules don't always align. And so the coordinators are busy, seasonal campers want improvements done, and there has been occasions where improvements are done irregardless of approvals by the conservation area coordinators. And so we want to tighten that up. So we've included the site layout form as part of the application, in which the campers have to outline what they want on their site, where they want it on their site, and any changes they would make to their site. It's in a written format that can be provided to the coordinators. They can review it and they can sign off on it. And so there's a clear understanding from the camper and the coordinators as to what site alterations are being done. And again, because we get complaints throughout the season because there's construction happening on sites during the peaceful, hopefully peaceful summertime, we've introduced as well that all improvements must be completed the Wednesday before the Victoria holiday weekend. So again, this allows the coordinators time to review those improvements, and the improvements are done before the camping season is in high gear. Improvements after Labor Day may be permitted, but they would be subject to the conservation coordinator's approval and the review of those site improvement forms. Again, the reasons limits construction to non-peak times and allows the coordinators full review and approval. Section 17 is a new section and introduces the hydrometers for Dalewood and explains the hydrometering procedure. I'm not going to go into detail on those procedures tonight. It's something that the board's already looked at and reviewed in terms of okaying that. But this simply provides it right in the application, both the wording for the procedures and what the details how that would be undertaken for the seasonal camper. There was a number of sections because we had to add section 17. We don't want a 35-page long application that people need to review. We did recommend removing some sections. The reasons vary. For instance, section 8 was removed. The rules and regulations. These are the rules and regulations that we expect all our campers to abide by. They're available on our website. They're available in our information guide. They're available at the gatehouse. So we felt it was overkill to include them in full in the seasonal camping application. Guests and visitors, there is a fee for guests and visitors on the seasonal camper site beyond those people that are identified on your permit. But again, that fee is outlined in the fee schedule. The payment confirmation and permit section was again repetitive. It already exists in the application. And the final removal was section 15. And for those members who have been around the table for some time, this section was included a number of years ago because there was at the time a fear that our trailers would be assessed for taxes. And so this was just an awareness to the campers that if that situation did arise, that we would be recouping those extra tax fees from them. It's no longer a concern because we no longer allow trailer storage in the campgrounds, and so the issue of permanency of the trailers is no longer there. So with that, if there's questions, but we're recommending approval of that seasonal camper application.
So I just have one question, Elizabeth. So when we remove section 8 about rules and regulations, does it state in there still that that they have to follow the rules and there's zero tolerance? Like, it's clear enough that even if we take out pages of rules and regulations, that it's still things we expect them to follow?
Madam Chair, this is an application to camp.
Yeah,
And so they fill out this application, but then we still issue a permit.
yeah.
And
So
that
then they would
permit,
still get it.
and the
Perfect.
permit still refers to those rules and regulations, the same permit that we give to our transient campers.
Because we don't want anybody saying, well, I didn't know that was a rule.
Right.
Right.
Because they're standing under the sign, I didn't know I couldn't park there. Bill.
Question for you, Madam Chair. I'm just looking at the seasonal camping standards, and number 9, sunrooms, Florida rooms, atom rooms are prefab. So basically, people don't build their own because we had issues with that years ago, right?
We've had some interesting things on the campsites.
With sheds, it says there's a size for sheds, and the location and that has to be approved, but it doesn't say they have to be prefab. So can I build my own shed, or?
Under the current situation, yes, they can, subject to the review and approval. That's
These guys
something,
gotta approve it.
yeah, it's something we've had discussions of maybe moving towards prefab just because of some of the issues that arise through it. But currently, yes, they can construct a
I'm
shed.
just seeing that we got the, not the cubic foot, but the footprint size, so I could build a really nice shed on it. I want mine 30 feet high, you know? It's really nice looking, it's just high.
I don't think Mike's gonna like it.
And that's why we have the form, and these guys are pretty diligent on it. Part of the concern when we've had discussions about going that way is, I don't know, 50–60% of the existing seasonals have construction sheds. So when we make that transition, it's also a very difficult process to manage because everybody sees what everyone else has and they want to start constructing it without the approval.
I'm
So
not trying to pick, I just
yeah,
noticed.
so those are just to give you some background as to the thought process, and that's why I think we're trying to tighten up, like Elizabeth said, more of the approval process and making a paper document. So we're not getting into, well, so-and-so said I could do it 5 years ago, or that there's a true paper trail, that these guys know exactly there's an understanding between the two of what's happening, and if they don't comply with it, it's still in our authority to advise them to change it.
Yeah.
Through Madam Chair, I don't see anything in here about accessibility. So if I show up with my wife who's in need of an accessible location of some kind, is there anything that can be done to help us?
In terms of an accessible
For
campsite,
example,
or?
yes, I need some kind of ramp to get up into the trailer because I just have my trailer, you know.
Oh,
Things like that.
Yeah,
Simple things.
I always say these are the rules. Those guys
Yeah.
would look at exceptions like that and deal with
Deal
them.
with it. Okay, so there is an understanding
Yeah.
that exists in that regard. Good.
And through Madam Chair, I mean, we have had examples where we've had to make some design exceptions to the decks to allow for accessibility into the trailer, and through their review, they make those discretionary calls based on the circumstances, such as accessibility or the need.
Thank you.
All right, we have a recommendation that we approve the seasonal camping permit applications for Dalewood and Lake Whitaker. We will move on and second it. Moved by Bill, second, Dave. There's no further dialogue on the motion, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Brings us up to section 28 permits. Joe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. 3 permits were issued by staff since the last meeting, all dealing with existing development for an addition or through accessory structures, either by geotechnical support or staff review in terms of their comfort level for the regulations. So just 3 permits to concur with this month.
Okay, we have a motion to move by myself, a seconder, Dave, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. All right, we're going to do the source protection. All right, so we will move into our source protection agenda. We haven't had any of these since January. Any introduction or any declarations of pecuniary interest on this one from members? None. We don't have any delegations. We all know that the meeting's being recorded. I'm not going to read that So we had our minutes from our Source Protection Authority meeting January 18th, 2017. Were there any questions or comments on those minutes from members? And on any of the Lake Erie Source Protection Region committee meetings? Any questions or comments on those? We do those all at once.
Can I have an approval on
Separate-
A and
separate
then
Okay.
a separate one for B?
So on our minutes of January 18th, can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Marcel, second by Max. All in favor? And that's carried. And then on the 4 sets of minutes from the Lake Erie Source Protection meetings, can I get to a mover and seconder on those as well to receive for information? Bill? Okay. All in favor? And that's carried. No correspondence. New business, we do have the annual report from 2016. That was circulated out along with all of those minutes. You get to page, what, about 39?
30.
Elizabeth, there you go. All yours.
So this is the first annual report for the Kettle Creek Source Protection Authority and the first annual report for the Lake Erie region. It really is a guinea pig for the region. It's not yet a requirement of the Act. We have some time before we officially have to release an annual report. But the committee wanted to work through the process and develop a template that actually showcased all the work that has been done in terms of implementing the plan thus far. So basically the work that is detailed in the plan has been undertaken by Kettle Creek staff on behalf of the municipalities involved in the plan, mainly Central Elgin, Malahide, and Town Center. I think it's pretty comprehensive. There was a lot of different additions and drafts of the report. I think the committee themselves, or at least the staff working group, really wanted to see a template that would be the template for each one of the source protection areas. And what we advocated here at Kettle is that simply wasn't going to work. We've only got 2 significant threats. Our plan has really concentrated on outreach and education, and I think that's evident in this report, whereas some of the other plans, outreach and education is only one element that they concentrated on, and there was a variety of things that they needed to look at. And so ours, a lot of it you'll see is 100%. We've already undertaken everything, and so a lot of those graphs, they're there. They'll be more meaningful, I think, with some of the other regions as they work through the process. But specifically, if you take away anything, it's that there's been a significant amount of work done in terms of implementing the source protection plan thus far. It's our intention, while it's not a requirement under the Act, we would be releasing, after your approval or pending your approval tonight, we would be releasing this to the public as well.
Questions? It's not always bad going first.
No.
All right, we do have a recommendation to approve the 2016 Kettle Creek annual report. Can I get a mover and seconder on that? Okay, Dave? Marcel? If there's no questions or comments on the motion, all in favor? That's carried unanimously. And that's it for this committee. That's it. We will adjourn. Motion to adjourn. By Bill, second by Rob. This meeting be adjourned. All in favor? Carried. We'll take a few minutes and then we'll do our motion to close and do our closed sessions.